Previously on the Shawn Ryan Show.
He's like, this came from a psychic? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, he looked at it and he like looked at the report and he's like, okay. So he wrote total fantasy on top of the report and sent it back to Joe at Meade. The engineers said the sub can't survive at depth. It's way too big. He's the only guy who thinks it's a sub. Yeah, well, your total fantasy launches in 112 days. Send it back to the Pentagon. Someone at the National Reconnaissance Office tasked a satellite to do a flyover, and they snapped pictures of the Red October submarine.
I would imagine that sparked a lot of interest in remote viewing and Robert Gates. Earlier you had mentioned they put you in a room where it's shielded from, say, radio signal or radio waves. Why is that?
Just to have control over the potential for signals to come in and out of the room to give you information.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's get into some of the technology when they started implementing that. All right, Shawn, we're back from the break. We were talking about your initial experience with remote viewing and without technologies. I wanted to talk to you about what are some of the technologies that they implemented and how did that improve your remote viewing experience?
Yeah, well, they use the binaural technologies that they developed there at Monroe because they invented binaural beats, right? Where you have one frequency in one ear and one frequency in the other ear, and the difference between the two, your brain then has to rectify, and it turns on special areas in your brain that can then allow for weird experiences or cool experiences to occur and expansions of consciousness. I just got back from a discovery program where they put a bunch of EEG sensors on your head and look at your brain waves while you're meditating, and then put signals in your ears to try to figure out what's going on and actually watch your brain in real time to see what's going on with your delta waves, your theta waves, alpha waves, beta waves, and then at the top, gamma waves. And the way they graph them, they make cool little designs and whatnot of shapes that can signify you in different levels of conscious awareness. And it's really cool stuff that they have operating up there. I talked to the folks up there, and they would love for you to come by and experience it for yourself.
Really?
Yeah, and on their dime, just come up and take a couple of courses and meet Joe McMonagle, the remote viewer, and see for yourself. Because a lot of things, like I could try to sit here and tell you, here's my experience, and here's, but it's better for you just to go there and see it for yourself and actually dig deep into your own consciousness and what you can do with your mind based on the technologies that they're assisting you with, because they've been doing this stuff for decades, and they're really good at it.
So they're willing to have me go to the Monroe Institute and test my remote viewing abilities.
Oh, yeah.
I am down. This is happening. This is definitely happening. I would love to do that.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, to talk about it is one thing, but you really got to dive in and, like, if you want to experience what it's like and, the things that you see, feel, sense in your own consciousness connected with, doing a remote viewing or doing a consciousness expansion experience, that's one of those things where you just got to dive in and do it,
I am 110% going to take you up on that.
Done.
So, Monroe Institute, here I come. This is happening.
That's awesome.
I'm pumped.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going. I am going. We'll talk after the show.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. So we talked a little bit about the technologies. Let's talk about, we talked on the break a little bit about going into the future, looking into the future, but it's right now, from what we've discussed thus far, everything to include Joe McMonagle, all of the remote viewing stuff that we've talked, well, I guess not. The space station that crashed, that would have been in the future.
Yeah.
But most of what we're talking about is actually in the present. What is this diagnosis that's happening? What is the pain this woman's feeling in her knee?
Yeah.
What is the picture in the envelope.
Yeah.
And so, but also remote viewing is also looking into the future.
Yeah. And there's actually a really cool study that was done because, I mean, there's so many people out there listening right now who are saying, oh, this is complete bullshit. And there are a lot of scientists out there who are like, okay, well, show me a peer-reviewed published study that shows that this stuff can occur. And, even with the Joe McMoneagle, the argument is N equals 1 isn't really proof of anything. Like one guy might have amazing abilities for whatever reason. To get it to the bottom of this, we need to study it a lot more. And it doesn't even prove that more than one person has this. There was actually a really cool study that I want to tell you about that proves that average humans can look into the future. And this is without a doubt like beyond Six Sigma proof, which is science's gold standard of this is a phenomena, that type of statistical proof that human beings can literally look into the future. And it was on an ironclad study that even the most vehement skeptics weren't able to poke any holes in. And it started with a study that was done on what's called priming. So they put a bunch of people in a chair in front of a computer system, and the computer ran the whole experiment, randomized the whole thing, selected out of a database, grabbed images and words that were connected with a study that they wanted to do regarding putting a picture of, let's say, a kitty in front of somebody. And so they show you this picture of this kitty on the screen, and then a few seconds later, they give you the option to select cute or ugly, binary choice. So you press button 1 or button 2, and then they measure you, because it's a computer, they can measure down to the split second, 100th of a second, how fast you're selecting your word associated with the image. But then they make it complicated one step further. For 1/30th of a second, before they even show you the picture of the kitty, randomly selected of the two words, they will flash one of the words in front of you that your conscious awareness can't pick up because we can't see 1/30th of a second, but the subconscious does pick it up. So your subconscious mind sees the 1/30th of a flash of the word right before they show you the kitty. And it's either cute or ugly that they flash before it. Now, if it's cute, you'll select cute faster. If you think kitties are cute, you might hate kitties. I don't know. You might say, all cats are ugly, right? They control for all that. But basically, if they flash ugly before the kitty, then it will take you a split second longer to select cute. And this is a perfect study because there's no study investigator and human interaction, so there's no human-to-human interface interaction that can occur there to where you're skewing the results. There's no clue about what the selection needs to be from any other source. It's just a computer running the experiment. So this is from a psychological sciences perspective, this is a perfect study because it's only a human being measured by a computer with a completely randomized set of data that's being placed in front of the human and measuring how fast they can react to something based on a stimuli that they put right before the whole process goes through.
Okay.
Okay.
Help me understand how this is looking into the future.
Okay. This next study switches it around. So this next researcher who wanted to investigate whether or not this primer had any influence on these people in the future, he took the primer from over here at the beginning of the process and he simply put it over here at the end of the process. So then the new experiment became, I'm going to show you a picture of a kitty or whatever, and then I'm going to give you two words, and then at the end, in that 1/30th of a second flash, after you have already made your choice, after you've already pressed your button and made your decision, we're going to flash the primer afterwards. So there should be absolutely no way, if you're looking at the picture, selecting your word, and then getting a primer afterwards, that primer should influence the speed at which you make your decision and click your button on whichever word you want to choose, right? Should have absolutely no effect, except it did. The primer flashed after your decision, altered the timing in which you could select the cute or ugly word choice in the same way that it did when you put it before. And not only did it occurred in 90 different experiments in 33 different independent labs in 14 different countries to over a 6 significance, statistical significance. So they basically proved in that set of studies, in this meta study that's published at National Institutes of Health, by the way, on the website, that humans, the consciousness of humans, like they don't do this consciously, but something in their subconscious looks into the future, sees that primer, and it affects the speed at which they can select cute or ugly based on the image that they've been given, and yet the primer happens after the fact that they've taken the choice. It still affects their speed at which they make the choice, which means they're looking into the future.
So hold on. So with no prompt,
Yeah.
what are we calling it, a prompt?
The primer.
A primer with no primer on the front or the back.
Well, they have one on the front or the back. The first set of experiments was on the front.
Okay.
And it affected people as they expected it to. Mm-hmm. But they put it on the back, and they didn't expect it to affect people, and then it did.
But the constant would be without a primer, correct?
They have control groups that were without a primer. Yeah,
that's what I meant.
Yeah, they had both experiments had a control group where they didn't have a primer.
So if the primer on the back end, you have one without it, one with it, you're faster with the one on the back end, and the primer happens after the decision has been made.
Yeah. In the congruent way that the primer would want to influence you if it was put in the front, the same type of results happen when they put it on the back. And that proved that basically consciousness was tied into non-locality, the quantum mechanics, right? Because quantum mechanics is something that is independent of space and time. It's not affected by time. So what that's proving to us, or what that's suggesting to us, not proving is a very strong word. What that's suggesting to us is that consciousness can reach into the future and see a future bit of data and influence your decision in the now. 90 studies proved it.
Wow. How about the past?
No studies that I know of. How to structure that type of experiment, I don't know. But that's a suggestion that consciousness goes out beyond the body. So another piece of science that can help prove that consciousness may be beyond the body and in a field of energy that just is at the fundamental core of who and what we are and the universe that exists around us, was an experiment they did with a slime mold. Now, a slime mold is a number of single-celled amoeba that come together in a colony that creates this slime mold that then moves around together as a bunch of single-celled creatures with identical DNA.
So it's a crowd of amoebas.
It's a crowd of amoebas that work in conjunction with each other, but they take on different functions within the slime mold itself. So these single-celled amoeba start to come together and create like internal organs that have different functions, that these slime mold amoeba over here do different things than these slime mold amoeba over here do, and including an immune system response where 1% of these individual creatures go around swallowing up the pathogens that find themselves within the slime mold, and they drop out of the bottom of the slime mold, self-sacrificing. They die, and the pathogen dies along with them, which is an altruistic act at a single-celled organism scale. They throw themselves on a grenade for the rest of the slime mold at a single-celled organism scale. So they did an experiment with these things, and they put some oatmeal in the path of, there's a Japanese researcher, so they used the population centers around Tokyo, Japan. And they had this train system that would ship people around that the engineers put together with computers and a group of engineers, and they let this slime mold go on these little piles of oatmeal. And what slime molds will do is they'll build a little tube system to ship the nutrients around when they find the food so that everybody gets fed. And so it spreads out and it starts finding these piles of oatmeal and starts creating these tube systems. And within 24 hours, the single-celled organisms of this slime mold had a tube system that looked exactly like the Japanese rail system that the engineers in the computer had built, except they took millions of dollars and months to build the train design for the computer systems to put together. The engineers did. The slime mold did it in 24 hours. It did it in a more efficient fashion than the train system wound up being, and was more efficient and would have cost less money had the Japanese engineers built it that way, that the slime mold built it. Right? So these are single-celled organisms that figured out a better train system for Tokyo, Japan than Tokyo, Japan had actually built. Where does that intelligence come from, except below the level of the cells themselves coming up into the cells?
Holy shit.
So that's another pretty good proof that consciousness is something that is more of a field of intelligence that we tap into. That certainly gives us animation, certainly gives us the ability to experience things, right? We have this body, and if our brain gets blown off or whatever, it certainly limits our ability, and we have brain damage and malformations. It certainly restricts our ability to experience consciousness, but it doesn't come from this brain. It comes through this brain. And the consciousness is actually something that's out in the field. This is why things like remote viewing can be real. This is why things like ESP and prediction of action can be real. Reaching out.
What is ESP?
Extrasensory perception.
What is that?
Psychic ability, like being able to know under which cup the ball is when you have no idea what it is. Kind of a remote viewing functionality. Or psychic ability, interfacing with spirits. That can make that possible from a scientific standpoint. Crazy
So
stuff.
do you think we all share the same consciousness? Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a minute since I've done a Bub's Naturals commercial, but it has not been a minute since I've taken the best shit of my entire life. Actually, just knocked one out this morning. It was amazing. And I'm going to give you the secret. You ready? Here's the secret. You want the secret for the best shit of your entire life that you could do, I don't know, every day, maybe multiple times a day? Here's the secret. Bub's Naturals Collagen Peptide says it's good for joints, hair, skin, and nails. I'm surprised they don't put on there it'll give you the best shit of your entire life, but hey, I get it, right? And you mix that with the Halo Creamer that's MCT oil. Put these two together, you're gonna have a explosive hell of a day. These things are both Whole30 approved, NSF certified, and USDA approved. So there's that. On top of that, hold on, wait, there's more. If that doesn't get you going, which I guarantee you it will, you've got Bub's new coffee. So this is the first ever coffee bean Whole30 approved, if you can believe that. And we all know coffee can, speed things up a little bit in the morning. But hold on, wait, there's more. Apple cider vinegar gummies. Guys, I'm going to be honest, I don't know exactly what these things do for you, but here it says, promotes energy, immune support, promotes healthy digestion, and supports healthy metabolism. I can tell you one thing, good luck just eating one of these things, because at the end of the night, I will crush an entire bottle of these. That will not give you the best shit of your life. I wouldn't recommend it. It will speed things up, but you may not like the final outcome. And hold on, wait, there's more. There's more. Bubs came out with a lot of new products. They have these hydrate or die hydration packets, great for post-workout. All this stuff is great for post-workout, especially the collagen protein. Guys, here's another thing about Bubs. Bubs is a tribute company. It's named after Glenn Bubs Doherty, who was a Navy SEAL and a CIA contractor. He died defending our freedom in Benghazi, and Bubs donates a portion of every order to the Glenn Doherty Foundation, and they donate 100% of the proceeds from their products on Veterans Day every year. I love this company. They are just solid people with a solid product, and they just want everybody to experience the best shit of your life. Go to bubsnaturals.com, use the promo code Shawn for 20% off, and let's get it going.
So if consciousness is a field energy, quantum mechanics, the theory behind it is that there are a number of field energies that come together, and they're all one field. It's all one thing throughout the one universe. So electron field has one field for the whole universe. But then there's a local expression of the electrons in this chair, for instance. Like there's a probability that this electron is going to be in this place with this movement on this atom, et cetera. And then it becomes real when you interact with it. When an observer is present, the wave function collapses, et cetera. So there's a one big field of electrons, but then there's the local expression of the electron right here. I think if consciousness is a non-local field, it's going to do the same thing. So yes, we can share the one big consciousness, which is the consciousness of the field itself, but then there are local expressions of our consciousness that come through our brain and become our individual existences. So while you can be you and I can be me, we're sharing that same conscious field that connects us. And the only difference between you and me in that scenario is that you started with your physiology and you had your experiences and you had your life story and you came from wherever you came from. And I came through my experiences, my life story, my physiology. And so in reality, I can see you as another version of me that simply has your bag of tricks. And I'm just another version of you that came through my experiences.
Have there been any other experiments on this?
Yeah, some. Like the Institute for Noetic Sciences is all over this stuff from a scientific perspective. That was started by Edgar Mitchell, who was an astronaut who went to space and had a unitive experience, I'm one with everything, wanted to put some science behind that and started the Institute for Noetic Sciences. And they're doing stuff like looking for gene expressions in DNA for psychic abilities, and they're finding results.
They're finding results.
Yeah. Like the stuff that the first studies that they've done are pioneered studies that they need to replicate. And, the science isn't conclusive or anything, but they've had the first foray into studying whether or not there are gene expressions that correlate with psychic ability. They've found a connection. So we may not, we may have a physiological switch to turn on and turn off to be able to have extra conscious awareness.
This stuff is fascinating.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, we don't have all the answers to all this stuff, but it's cool to explore and discuss because, there are things in us as humans that we don't explore and we can do, that we just don't do. And so we don't have the benefits of them because you're just not doing them, but we can do them right now. There's stuff that everyone listening to this can do.
Wow. This is, wow. What other kind of courses do they offer over at Monroe Institute?
Well, I just got done with the Discovery program, which scans your brain and shows you your brain waves in deep meditation and through the experiences that they give you. They also have courses where you can go in and try to connect with extraterrestrial entities, that kind of stuff. Because if we're connected with consciousness, that means they're likely connected with consciousness too. And you can reach out and say hi non-locally through being wherever you are at the moment that you are and the place that you are and reaching out and saying hi, because non-locality means there's no limitation of space and time to get a message through. You can go out and look for lost souls that haven't quite made it to heaven yet and lead them where they were confused, lost their life suddenly or whatever it is, and they're wandering around, they don't know where they're going. Find them and kind of hand-hold them to this central location where they can then zip off to their final destination. Like, they do cool, crazy, weird, awesome stuff like that. But that has real-world evidence of, like, they would go in and they'd talk to someone who was lost, and this person who was lost would give them information about they were on a ship and they were, a chef or a galley crew, and that the ship's name was XYZ, and they grew up in this specific little village in Ireland, and all that stuff would check out. Like, they did the research after the fact, and all the information that someone that they would interface with would give them all this information, and then it would check out historically that there was a ship of that name, and it did sail from the port that they said it would sail from, and that there was a village that had that family name in it, and all this other stuff. It's like, you look for...
Have you done any of those courses?
I haven't.
You're strictly remote viewing right now.
I've done remote viewing. I did a gateway, which I highly suggest. Those are amazing because that gets you into the technology of binaural beats and what the technology can do regarding stimulating different portions of your brain to expand your consciousness, to basically kind of have a psychedelic experience without the psychedelics through technology. Amazing, amazing stuff. And this last one I did, they did the brain scan stuff in my brain while I was meditating, which is really cool to be able to see you have these experiences, right? You're wearing these headphones and you're experiencing these signals in your brain that are turning on different things based on the physiological result. But then you're able to go look at the brain scan afterwards and say, okay, was I really, viewing somewhere far off, or was that my imagination? And then you look at the brain scan, and the frequencies that your imagination are correlated to weren't even firing at the moment. So you're like, well, science suggests that's not my imagination. Like, I'm not filling in the blanks artificially. So maybe my experience was something far away. It's a cool place.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out.
You gotta go.
I cannot wait to check it out. Do you find any correlation between me and you've talked a lot about psychedelics offline and here too in the last episode. Do you find any correlation between some of the clarity and intuition that psychedelics can bring you with what some of the stuff you're learning at Monroe Institute?
Absolutely.
Could that supercharge what you're...
Yeah, I think it's a different approach to the same location. Like, when you introduce an exogenous compound in psychedelics to your body, it's going to have a certain effect on what your mind is doing based on how it's affecting your brain, right? The receptors that are being filled by the chemical that are triggering different consciousness events within your mind, et cetera. And you have insights that are meaningful often, and different feelings that you don't normally feel when you don't have that chemical influencing you. Technology can do the same thing, just in a little different fashion. The experience is a little different, but it's similar. But it also delivers insight and can get you into that space where the same type of thing is happening in your brain, except your brain is supplying the chemicals that fill the receptors because of the stimuli that you're putting into your brain with the signals in your headphones. So it's similar, it's different, but it's still different from your regular everyday awareness where you're, driving around going to lunch or whatever. And it can certainly deliver insights. Like this last week, I went into a meditation, and it's a little personal, but there was some stuff between myself and my wife where we were just miscommunicating on this one thing. We have a great relationship. We don't usually have any problems, but there was one thing that was kind of just vexing me a little bit. And I went into that meditation with these signals in my ear, and I was able to get insight on how to handle that better than I had been. And those technologies helped me gain that awareness where I don't think I would have come up with that on my own. I mean, you've experienced psychedelics and I have too, and we understand the different ways we can see things when those chemicals are filling the receptors that they are, and they're allowing us to see things in a different way. The technology up there at Monroe helped me do the same thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I can get extremely intuitive when I am on psychedelics.
Yeah.
And, I'm always looking for the scientific explanation on why that happens, why I'm able to tap into I guess I would call it a higher consciousness.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm in the middle of a psychedelic journey, and it's been, I mean, it happens every single time. It's like everything's mapped out. And have you heard any good scientific explanations for that? I'm really interested in this. I don't know enough about it, and it might be way over my head, but this quantum entanglement stuff is really fascinating to me.
Well, funny you say that. I had an opportunity. John Clauser, who won the Nobel Prize last year, bought me way too many beers. I met him at the Berkeley Yacht Club, where he has this a couple of sailboats that he sails on the weekends, and he races in regattas and stuff. And I went to talk to him and hang out with him, and we had a lot of beers over a multi-hour conversation. There is no doubt that non-locality in quantum mechanics is weird to the point that we can't really understand it. And the thing that he won the Nobel for, by the way, he was looking to disprove entanglement on John Bell's equations rather than prove it. And he wound up proving it, and then they gave him the Nobel for it. That was a complete surprise to him because he thought he was going to disprove it because he was a fan of Einstein's interpretation and all this other stuff. But
do you have a good way of breaking that down? For
quantum mechanics?
Yeah. No.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. My theory on it, I've got an interesting theory that, some people are a fan of and other people's aren't. If consciousness is also a non-local field that we have not yet named, like if consciousness is one of those things that goes out infinitely and is attached to all the other fields, then consciousness is easily explained as the thing that collapses the wave function. And when you look at something, it reacts differently than when you don't look at it, because your loop and connection back into consciousness reaches non-locally into the collapse of that wave function and makes it happen. When you're accessing that information, when you're not accessing that information, it doesn't have to render into that place of actually being a particle. It can stay a probability. That's just a pet theory of mine, but it makes sense that, we're starting to prove, psychic ability exists. We're starting to prove that looking into the future exists through these almost irrefutable studies that a computer is controlled. Well, how would you explain all of that, including the collapse of the wave function when you're looking at something or not looking at something, besides having consciousness be a non-local field that's all tied into the whole thing? Because for me, that would be like if in video games there's this thing called occlusion culling that allows the computer to operate a huge environment in a 3D game, right? It only shows you what you're looking at, just like quantum mechanics. There may be a huge world of 3D map in front of you, but it's not going to render the whole thing. It's only going to render what you can see so that it can have enough cycles to show you frame number 2. Because if it's got like in an infinite universe, if it's got to render the whole universe, you're never going to get to frame number 2. But if it only has to show you what you see, then all of a sudden it's showing you a bunch of frames per second that you can interact with. And that's what they do in video games. That's kind of, to me, how the universe works, where there's an infinite possibility of everything going on all at once, but the only thing that gets rendered into matter is the thing that you're interacting with at the moment. I don't know. I'm probably totally wrong. And everybody who understands physics a hell of a lot better than me, like, hate it. What a dumbass.
Oh, I'm sure they'll be in the comments. Don't worry. But
you're all right, by the way. Every one of you is telling me I'm wrong. You're right. I'm wrong.
Well, Shawn, I think, one, I cannot wait to get to the Monroe Institute and meet Joe.
Yeah, you got to get up there.
Personally, I cannot wait for that to happen, and I really hope we can get him here. That would be a hell of an interview.
Yeah, I think so.
And a real honor. But it was a real honor to interview you for the second time, and thank you for sharing all that information. And I have a feeling we'll be seeing you again on this show. So if you'll come.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
maybe
Anytime.
after I get to the Monroe Institute.
Yep.
I'm sure I'm going to have a lot more questions. So hopefully I have the capability.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me nervous. I don't want to go there and
Don't be nervous. Everybody's got it to a certain degree. Some people are better than others. I mean, there's no question that, people like Joe are amazing remote viewers. I got to meet Lynn Buchanan, who is an amazing remote viewer, who George Clooney actually played Lynn in the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, right? And while everybody makes fun of that movie, I think it's brilliantly humorous. That's an actual program, and that was a successful intel gathering operation. Lynn's another one of those guys who's just freaking amazing at looking at something and being able to give you the detail of it. And there's some folks who aren't as good at it, but just like anything else, LeBron James proved that, you can score 7,000 or whatever points in a lifetime of a career basketball. He's the only one who's proved it so far. Other people can't shoot a basket to save their life. So there's going to be people who are better at it and not so good at it based on their physiological ability. But everyone can try to take a shot.
well, I'm going to try to take a shot. So, I told you, I think it was at dinner last night, maybe it was at lunch, but I feel a lot of intuition.
Yeah.
And I can't explain it all. I've talked about several different occasions on a show here and there throughout, whatever we have. Right now we're sitting at 57 shows. I can't remember which ones I've talked about them on, but it happens so often where I'll be thinking of something, or I'll say something, or I'll throw something out verbally into the world, and it happens. That person there's too many coincidences happening, and it happens to me so much that I've sat both my parents down separately and asked them if they have had any of these experiences or if they're ongoing. And
What'd they say?
well, they looked at me like I was crazy and and they said no. But that's not going to keep me from exploring, because I want something is going on.
Yeah.
And I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm hoping I'll get some answers at the Monroe Institute. So thank you for the invite.
No problem.
100% going.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah,
Can't wait. I can't wait to hear your report after you come back.
I hope you're there.
That'd be amazing.
I hope you're there.
We'll have to-
Are you going to go into any of these other programs, do you think? Or
I'm going to try out the out-of-body experience one that they have in July set up. So I'm going to go up there again here real soon and see if I can pop out of my body. I've never done that before, but there's a sense from the people who have done so that it's more real than their physical reality that they experience when they're in their body. And they can, wherever they think about they want to go, they immediately go there and experience what's going on. And then the people who are in that location will report weird things going on associated with that person. Like someone who told me, they said, well, I popped back home and see what was going on there. And I was able to tell where my wife was, and she was there, according to her report of where she was in the house and what she was doing, that he witnessed there, and that her screensaver or something on her computer froze on a picture of him on her computer, where it was supposed to, go from picture to picture to picture to picture. It just froze on it and then wouldn't change. So like weird stuff like that.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's full of those kind of stories. And if consciousness is a non-local quantum mechanics thing, then that kind of stuff can happen. And we need to get a better grasp on it if we want to take advantage of it all.
Man, this is going to take me down a lot of rabbit holes.
I can't wait.
Me neither. Well, Shawn, seriously, again, it's an honor to have you here. I love our conversations. I can't wait to see you again. And best of luck.
Thank you, brother.
And everything will be linked below. But yeah, safe travels back home. And seriously, I cannot wait to see you again.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.